That's what I was going to do, Jason. If you want to do it, let us know.
That sounds like you've got the ducks all in a row.
I don't know about that.
I couldn't it is necessary.
Get out on the go. See how it's going.
I think so.
Somebody stole my gavel.
Oh my goodness.
Grab a bottle of water. No gavel. We'll find it. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call to order this public meeting of the Arapahoe County Board of County Commissioners for November 19th, 2019. To my left is Ron Carl, the county attorney. To my far right is Gail Stumpo, the clerk to the board administrator. Good morning, Ms. Stumpo. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Conti?
Good morning.
Commissioner Sharp?
Here.
Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Jackson?
Here.
And Commissioner Bacon?
Here. Commissioner Sharp, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Carl, are there any modifications to the agenda this morning?
There are no modifications.
The commissioners have received an agenda with all of the items on the agenda. Are there any questions and concerns about that agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second?
Motion made by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Conti. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. This is the time that we've set aside for citizens to comment. Citizens are invited to speak to the Board of County Commissioners on any non-agenda items. If you're here to speak to, in reference to any of the agenda items, we would ask that you wait until that agenda item is called up. Are there any citizens that would like to address the Board of County Commissioners this morning? Seeing none, we will close the citizen comment period. We have a number of items on our consent agenda this morning. Are there any questions or comments by the commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Motion made by Commissioner Sharp, seconded by Commissioner Holland. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, our consent agenda has been approved. We have one general business item this morning. This is a request for an extension of time for Highline Creek Estates Plat P17-006 and the FDP, Final Development Plan, P17-005. Our presenter this morning will be Chuck Haskins from our engineering division. Our attorney on this matter is Robert Hill, the Senior Assistant County Attorney. Mr. Hill, would you please set the foundation for us, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This, as you stated, is a request for an extension. This is not a public hearing, though it's being heard as a general business item. The board has jurisdiction to proceed. There's no particular noticing requirements. The matter has been posted.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hill. Good morning, Mr. Haskins.
Morning, Board. Chuck Haskins, Engineering Services Division. The request before you today is a request for an extension of time of Highline Creek Estates Plat and Final Development Plan. Those documents were approved by the board in May 2018. The Final Plat and Final Development Plan never met the conditions of approval. Those were execution of a subdivision improvement agreement, dedication of right-of-way for Iliff Avenue, and revisions to the Final Plat and Final Development Plan document. Jan Yeckes, under her authority, extended the time to meet those conditions by a year. That expired the summer of 2019. We had been met with the applicant, Scott Alpert, a few times to discuss options of bringing this project to closure. Even the latest proposal was that, based on the urgency, and the board knows we're trying to improve the Iliff Avenue corridor, we would go ahead and pay him for the right-of-way. If he agreed to enter into a subdivision improvement agreement and pay the cash in lieu fees based on a phased development plan. My last discussion with Mr. Alpert, and he is in the audience today and he can speak for himself, was that his preference, and he would want to pay those items concurrent with each building permit. So because that is a far departure from how we do projects in the county, staff rejected that offer. We're still willing to negotiate something whereby we obtain the right-of-way or purchase the right-of-way if he would pay for the improvements along his frontage and pay his cash in lieu in some type of phased development, reasonable phased development, 2 to 3 phases. So that's staff's presentation. If there's any questions, I can answer those, or Jason Reynolds is here, Kat Hammer from the Planning Division.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins. Commissioner Conti.
Yes, Mr. Haskins, I'm just wondering, when you speak of a phased development, is there a timeline that you have in your mind as far as how long that phasing could take?
That would be the other component of it. We talked about 2 to 3 phases and possibly a limit of 5 years.
Thank you.
Questions? Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I'm hoping the applicant will also speak, but I'm kind of curious. There's been quite a bit of back and forthing. that has gone on? How many iterations, how long has it taken? This wasn't just a simple either this or...
Right. There was a couple of offers and counter offers. I think we started out with, the conditions of approval, and that the project is expiring. Jan only has a year to extend those things, so really don't have approval until those conditions are made, and ended up with the last iteration of that is we would purchase the right-of-way, and he would agree to enter into a subdivision improvement agreement to pay or repay for those frontage improvements and pay the cash in lieu. So there was 2 to 3 variations on that. I don't remember all of those, but that was the gist of it.
Okay, and at the end, the negotiations are just not...
Yeah, I think at the end was our final offer to, again, pay for the right-of-way, which we typically don't do. Those are donated with the final plat. So that was a big departure for us. But again, we see the urgency to complete the corridor, and we're going to have to obtain the right-of-way one way or the other. So that's where we landed the last iteration. And my discussion with Scott a few weeks ago is he wanted to pay the cash in lieu specifically on a lot-by-lot basis, which not something we typically do.
So, okay. But we did originally have a plan then, so if we were going to continue with that plan, it would have to be modified.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Haskins at this point? If not, then we'll ask Mr. Albert to come forward. And if you could state your name and address, either home address or business address, either one, for the record.
Scott Albert, President of Albert Development. My address is 1201 South Parker Road, Suite 200, Denver 80231. Typically, the developer, when they're ready to develop, donates the frontage for any right-of-way that's required and pays for the frontage in front of their property. And we did that next door. And because we've got some other projects going right now, we're not ready to start this project. So we asked for an extension of time. We were granted one-year extension. And we asked for another one-year extension, and which I don't even think is really quite enough. I'd probably be coming back in another year and maybe even asking for another year extension. And the county is basically, they're ready to develop the Isle of Corridor right now. And because of that, they have to acquire the right-of-way and pay for the widening if the developers aren't ready. So the staff has been pressuring me to make some kind of a deal and donate the right-of-way and pay for the right-of-way. And I made an offer that I would pay per permit, which has been done in the past before. Then they sent me, and we've gone back and forth a few times, and they're giving me time frames as to when this needs to be done. The other thing that staff hasn't mentioned is the fees on this project. When I first bought this project, the fees were about 1/10 of what they are today. So the schools and the parks have gone up about tenfold. The park fees on this project would have been about $80,000, and now they're $800,000. The school fees on this project would have been about $50,000, now they're $500,000. The widening of the road is another $400,000. So before I even start a shovel of dirt on this project, I've got $2 million in costs. I've got other projects going, and I'm not ready to start this project yet. In being prudent, I don't want to have too many projects going, especially when the media, and we're coming into an election year and there's recession fears and that kind of thing going on. So it's prudent for us to wait, do the project next door, see how it goes, and then come in with this project. So at this time, it doesn't make sense for us to even do the permit basis and do that. So I'd probably be asking for a 2-year extension and have the county put the road in and pay for the right of way. I know the county doesn't want to do that, so I'm just going to let you guys decide what you want to do.
Questions for Mr. Alpert? I have a number 2, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should know this, but why is it that the school board and the parks went up quite so much?
Originally,
Was it because the land is so much more valuable, or is it some other thing?
it's that they used to value the ground for cash in lieu of fees based on like an agricultural value, and the schools and parks decided that they didn't want to do that anymore and that they wanted to go with the actual value of the land, which is fine, but it jacks the fees up, so it makes it harder to open a project.
So there was a misunderstanding around how the land was valued.
No,
'Cause it was what we affectionately call the woodshed, right?
well, not exactly. They used to do it on an agricultural zoning, which maybe would have been $40,000 or $50,000 an acre.
But
Now,
when was used to? When they,
2, 3, or 4 years ago. I don't know exactly what
Okay.
day it changed, but after I bought this project, the fees would have been on a lower number, and now they're on a higher.
I see. Okay, thank
They
you.
go on the actual value of today's.
My questions are, you mentioned a project next door. I'm not familiar with any project next door.
We have a townhome project that is adjacent to this one, and we're in the process of doing the land development, and we're getting ready to start 68 townhome units on it.
Okay. I think maybe I am aware of that. I think we've heard those before. Okay, and then you mentioned that this has been done before by permit.
So back in the recession in 2011, we had a project called Valencia Court, and the market was such then that the cash in lieu of fees at that time, I don't remember the exact number, but the county granted us the right to pay per permit for the fees instead of paying it all up front.
Was that a decision made by the board or by staff?
Both.
Okay.
The staff
staff
agreed
recommended
to it then,
approval.
and then the board agreed to it.
All right.
And what year was that?
2011, I think he said.
Right. Approximately.
After the recession. Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Sharp?
You know, Mr. Albert, I am sympathetic to your position, but we put millions into the I-Love corridor, and tremendous amount of time and effort. And while I'm sympathetic to your business and, you know, where you are going, the county's not a financing organization. And so we've got to get this project done, or the cost to us significantly increase, too. So I hope you can appreciate that. I think the fees need to be paid to the county to get this project going, this road project done and completed. And to me, the recession was, and I remember that that it was different. But these are business pressures of your own, not of the doing of the county. And I understand that, and I really do appreciate that. But I've got to look out for the taxpayers and the costs that we're incurring at the county level. And so I wish we could work something out. We haven't paid for right of way, so that's a offer that we're making that is above and beyond what we normally do. So I'm not inclined to do a whole lot more, I have to say. Listen to your presentation, but I'm for one person, I'm just not inclined to do a whole lot more than that at this point in time. It's just kind of the way it is and where we are with this project. The project has been in the works for years now, and so I'm sorry about that. But
If you guys don't do anything, you're going to have to pay for the right-of-way and pay for the widening of the road. I mean, I'm not ready to develop the property yet. So either you can extend it and I'll pay for it when I get there, or you've got to pay for it now. I'm not ready.
Any other
There may be
questions?
some other alternatives that are not pleasant, but anyway.
Any other questions for Mr. Albert? One last opportunity, Mr. Albert, if you'd like to. I do have another question for Mr. Haskins. Is he still here?
Yep.
Okay. Just can't see him over the end of the. I have another question for you, but I wanted to give Mr. Albert the.
If we were ready to go, I'd be paying all the fees and I'd even have to have paid it all up front and everything else. We've got a lot of other things going, and I know that's not, your problem. Since I'm not ready to go, unfortunately, the county, if they want to move forward with ILIF, they'll have to take the piece of property and pay for the road widening. I mean, it's just the way the development business is.
And I might not be inclined to pay for the right-of-way. Honestly, this is very frustrating. I understand I'm sorry.
Please go ahead, Commissioner Sharp.
It's just frustrating. I understand you've got other projects, but this one we've already allowed an extension and I just personally believe that's adequate. And I would like to see you step up and do what needs to be done on this project, on your project. You own the property, and I'd like to just have you step up and get it done. Fulfill your obligation.
I'm not obligated to do this right now. Since I'm not ready to start, I don't have to pay for the road and give you the right of way. You can take my zoning away if that's what you want to do. So I understand, and I totally, get what you guys have to do. I'm just not ready to pay that much in fees and start this project along with all the other things I've got going. And you're paying all the other landowners, which I'm a landowner out there, you're paying them all for the right of way. They're not giving it to you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Albert? Thank you, Mr. Albert. We appreciate it.
There's one thing I would like to say is that I've done several projects in the county from the last 30 to 50 years of my family, and we've honored every one of our obligations. We've brought all of our projects to fruition, and this one too will come to fruition. I'm just not ready to start it today. So I think the staff could have painted me in a better light. I've never not done an obligation. This obligation was if I didn't file the plat and pay the fees in 60 days, then the plat doesn't get filed, and that's what we're doing. So you don't have to file it. If you want to extend it, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine. The only thing I have to do is just start over. So I'll start over. Thank you for being a wonderful staff and a wonderful board of directors, and thank you for all the projects you've helped me do in the past. And I look forward to coming back here in the future with more projects.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. Mr. Haskins, could you come up again, please? One of the questions, you heard Mr. Albert say this has been done before back in 2011. I'd like your comment on that, and then I have a follow-up.
We did, and it was a request to the board to pay the cash in lieu fees on a case-by-case basis. We had some drainage fees also that were paid, so we worked up a cost per unit, and we did have that arrangement in front of the board. The board supported that, and as was indicated, it was mostly because of the dire economic conditions that the country was in at the time. One other project in Copperleaf, we did that as well. And we just tied a roadway contribution to lots. So we took the total cost of the roadway contribution, divided it by the number of lots, and the builders of Richmond and Lennar paid that as they went along. But again, that was in that time frame of 2008 to 2011, 12. I don't remember the exact dates. Those are the only two I'm aware of. Jason may have other information on cash in lieu. We don't usually get involved in cash in lieu. Planning handles that. So.
Okay, one more follow-up from me first, if you don't mind. So you mentioned that there had been some negotiation back and forth, and I'm concerned about the easement, the donation of the easement versus the purchase of the easement. What's going on as part of the ILF corridor project, and what more or less has been already offered to Mr. Alpert again. If you could just put that fresh in my mind again.
Okay, and I'm assuming you're talking about the public use easement along the frontage?
Correct.
Okay. So when Mr. Alpert came in initially for development, we had discussed, and hopefully this was articulated in the final plat and final development plan matter that came before the board in May of 2018. I don't remember all the specifics of that. But we initially looked at a 25-foot right-of-way dedication. That allowed us to complete the widening, complete the sidewalk, and the landscaping requirements along the corridor. We have a detached sidewalk in that area. We discussed that with, the TRC discussed that with Mr. Alpert, and we agreed that we would do 12 feet of right-of-way and a 13-foot public use easement. Get the roadway in the right-of-way, and then the sidewalk and the landscaping would be in this public use easement. We've done that on other projects before.
And is that what's being done with the other owners in the area?
That's what was done next door to his townhome development that he referenced in his discussion. There aren't any other developments that I'm aware of along the ILF corridor that we negotiated that with this project. But that allowed Mr. Alpert the ability to to measure his setbacks from the right-of-way line, which was further south than it would have been if we obtained the 25-foot right-of-way. So we're trying to work with him and get what we needed and allow his project to be successful. So that was the...
So in order not to delay the ILF corridor project, what do we need from this particular owner?
We need the 12 foot of right-of-way, the 13 feet of public use easement dedicated as we had negotiated. And again, I want to be very clear, that was a recommendation by staff. We understand that that's the board's final decision on that. We're just trying to negotiate.
That was to pay for that.
That was to pay for the 12 feet of fee and the 13 feet of easement.
So that was offered to him?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to be clear about that purchase of that has been offered, and he didn't want to do that, correct?
No, he didn't want to do that in combination with the other items. I think
paying the cash.
Yeah, I think he's very comfortable with us paying for the right of way, but not as a condition to enter into the SIA to pay for the improvements and the cash in lieu. I think those items, as he expressed, are yes.
Right now, good. Commissioner Conti.
Yeah, my question was, I just wondered if you had knowledge of, he referenced the parks and the schools changing their policy, going to actual value versus like an ag value on the land. And do you know when that technically happened, and what was the means by which that happened? Was it simply a rule that someone imposed? And
yeah, I'd have to defer to Jason or Kat on that. I'm not familiar with when that occurred. So,
well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Good.
So Jason handled that.
Thank you. Good question. That started in about 2015. Our subdivision code allows two paths for calculating cash in lieu valuation. The first path is the assumed value, which is approximately $40,000 per acre for cash in lieu. That is very low when you compare it to what actual land costs are nowadays. The other path is appraised value. And one way that we've gotten to that is that the school district, the library district, open spaces may request that we consider appraised value rather than assumed value. And in this case, we got a request, I believe, from both parks and the school district that we look at this project with appraised value or the actual costs of the land. And during the final development plan and final plat process, Mr. Alpert agreed to consider the value that he paid for the property a couple of years previous for that. So that's how that number ended up being much larger than the $40,000 per acre that is the assumed value in the code.
Just for clarity, so if I'm understanding what you're saying then correctly, it's not necessarily an automatic that it goes to the appraised value, but it's now at the school and the park's discretion whether they choose to ask for the appraised value versus the assumed value?
Correct. Those agencies could just accept the $40,000 per acre. However, in recent experience, they've been pretty consistent about asking for appraised value due to the cost of land in the Denver metro area.
Cost of land and the fact that money's on sale with the interest rates at what they are. Okay, thank you.
And is that school district, what school district are we talking about?
It's Cherry Creek.
Cherry Creek schools, okay. Any other questions for Jason?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. This is not a public hearing. I just want to ask if there's anyone here that wants to address the Board of County Commissioners about this issue. Seeing none. Commissioner comments? Any further discussion, or are there a motion? Commissioner Conti. Sure. I think that's possible. Yeah, your microphone was not on.
So sorry. If it's possible to ask the applicant one final question, my apologies.
Thank you for coming back up, Mr. Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. It is just curious to me. Obviously, when, per plot, the separation of these properties and paying for them as you go. This was done obviously back in the depth of the recession, when everybody was desperate for any building to be happening, and money was definitely not on sale as it is today. And I'm just curious, why is it that you're asking us to adopt those same policies as if we were in those kind of dire economic conditions, when obviously that is not the state? Are you in those kind of dire economic conditions?
No, I'm not in dire straits, thank God. I've just got other projects going, and the fees when I originally got this land under contract and started working on it, that was 2015. That's when the rates changed. And to the banks also, since the recession, the banks don't loan 100% of your costs anymore. You've got to put the land in, you've got to put 35% of your costs in, and other things have gone up too. I mean, all of the trades and all the land development and all the vertical subcontractors, all of their prices have gone up. And I venture to say that they've gone up faster than the market conditions have gone up. So it's just with a combination of all those things happening, and then the fees going up, and the banks don't want to loan on fees, they just want to loan on your hard costs. It's all cash that you've got to put up front. So with that and our other projects going, it didn't seem prudent to, what could be at the top of the market right now, to get overextended.
Any other questions from me?
Thank you. That did bring some clarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions, or motions at this point?
Okay, this is a difficult one. I personally regret that some kind of compromise couldn't have been worked out. I really feel that I'm looking forward to the project when it's completed, but I also know, excuse me, that the ILF corridor project also has been on our books for a very long time, and needs to be completed. I drive that way fairly often, and it needs to be widened and repaired. So I'm going to make the motion, and I'm hoping that that as we go forward we can work some things out. But here we go. In the matter of the request from Alpert Development Partners to extend the approvals for the Highline Creek Estates final plat, case number P17-006, and final development plan, case number P17-005, and in conjunction therewith to approve amendment of the original conditions of approval for the plat and FDP, I have read the board summary report, considered all staff and public comment, including that of Public Works and Development staff and the Alpert Development Partners as was presented, and hereby move to deny the extension request for the final plat and FDP approvals for the Highline Creek Estates development under the above case numbers, and further move that the prior approvals for the final plat and FDP be rescinded and voided in accordance to Section 5-2.1 G, paren 1, and 5-2.1.I, paren 3 of the Land Development Code. And I offer that motion somewhat reluctantly, but there it is.
Motion made by Commissioner Jackson. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was seconded by Commissioner Conti. Is there any further discussion? I'll just offer that I think in this case, the ILIF corridor project is so important in my mind that I will be supporting this motion in second. So other than that, I think that's my whole reason behind it. So there's been a motion and a second. Again, any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, then the motion to deny has been approved. This was the only other thing on this was our only general business this morning. Are there any commissioner comments? If there are no other commissioner comments, we are adjourned. Yes, and we'll be going to the West Hearing Room for our next session. Somebody needs to investigate. Our deputy can. What happened to my gavel?
Yeah, that's Strasburg.
I think you got those by email, but not yours.
Oh, actually, I don't think I did, but thank you.
Here's the original copy on that. I come from downtown. I do never. It took me an hour and 20 minutes to get downtown.
Why was it used to be? I know.
Are you ready? Okay.
Professional.
We will call the meeting to order of the Planning Commission for Tuesday, November 19th, 2019. And note that we do have a quorum of the board present with 2 members absent. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes from November 5th,
of this year, and I noted one correction that should be made in discussion. It was not Jamie Woman who asked about the 80-foot tall flagpole. It was I. So we would like that changed, please. Are there any other comments or corrections to the minutes? And we can consider a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Woman, Ms. Woman, makes a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rodney Buckham. Men, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Our first item of business tonight is item number 1, LE 19-002, the Culver Library, Main Street Villas, location and extent. And presenting for the county is Kat Hammer.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kat Hammer with Public Works. The county attorney has reviewed the noticing docs and has determined the noticing requirements have been met, and the planning commission has jurisdiction to make decision. Like the chair said, this is LE 19-002 Culver Library, location and extent. It is located northeast of the intersection of South Main Street and West 6th Place in Byers. The adjacent land around the property is either residential or sited for residential uses. The applicant, Oz Architecture, on behalf of the owner, Arapahoe Library Districts, is requesting approval of a location and extent to allow for an approximately 10,000 square foot single-story building to replace their existing library located 1 mile northeast of the proposed site. The proposal does include a drive-up book drop, pedestrian walkways, bike racks, landscaping, open space, and adequate parking for the use. The approximately 1.8 acre site is a platted property and is located within the Buyer Sub-Area Plan adopted by the county in 2003. The Buyer Sub-Area Plan designates this site as residential single-family less than 1 acre and defines that land as designated suitable for single-family dwellings on smaller lots, which provide areas for a variety of housing types and price ranges with higher densities. Staff has found that the proposed library will complement the planned residential development in this land use designation. Staff is recommending approval of this case with 3 conditions. The applicant is aware of these 3 conditions, and I have not heard any objection from the applicant. The applicant, Justin, from Oz Architecture, is here if you have any questions. I also stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Does the applicant wish to make some comments?
Good evening. I'm Justin Gers with Oz Architecture. Thank you for your time tonight. A few comments on this project. It is a community asset that we're proposing here, so we believe that it would be a good asset, again, for the community as a center, and it fits within the residential area that is in proximity of this project, and we believe it will be a great thing for the community to have a center. Thank you.
So the current library will be closed?
That's correct.
And this one opens?
That's correct.
What will be done with the current library? Is it going to be repurposed for a different use, the building, or are you aware?
I am not aware of what will happen to the existing building. They are actually mobile home or mobile type trailer building. So I think they'll be dismantled and moved across, and they may be used for the school use. I'm not positive.
Yeah, that does make sense. I just was curious as to a reuse possibility. Also, I noticed that IREA was concerned about the location of the underground transformer. Have you been in discussions, or do you know if the project manager has been in discussions with IREA regarding that location?
I do know that we've been in contact with IREA, working on what that transformer location is, and we have located the transformer on site to be within their parameters and to have the proper clearances. The transformer itself, as far as I understand, will not be underground; it'll be above ground. But they are in receipt of, I guess, our permit and our requirements, and we're working within their requirements to make it work.
Right, because they seem to be concerned about accessibility, especially if you were considering building some kind of a natural surround around it, whether it be shrubs or trees. So I was just curious what the progress was for those discussions.
I think that we've come to an agreement on what needs to happen within the IREA requirements. We are not planning on screening it such that it will impede their access to it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, at this point then, we will open the public hearing. If somebody wants to speak to the Culver Library LNE. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing regarding the Culver Library and bring it back to the Planning Commission. If there are any other questions or discussion. Mrs. Lynn?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Great, that would be very good.
In the case of case number LE19-002, Calvert Library location extent, I have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the hearing, and hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to conditions 1 through 3.
We have a second for the motion?
I second that motion.
Mrs. Woolman seconds the motion. Any other comments? We'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our second item of the night is LR 19-002, Helvey Comprehensive Plan Amendment to the Arapahoe Comp Plan, and Larry Mugler will present for the county.
Greetings, Commissioners. Larry Mugler in the Long Range Planning Section. This is a plan amendment request, a little bit different in that you are the final authority on this particular project. The project was noticed properly. We have the affidavits from both the I-70 Scout and the Villager for publication of it, so I think we're ready to proceed with it. I have just a couple of slides to give you a little perspective. I know the maps in the report are pretty small, so let's see if this goes. This is a sketch from the buyer sub-area plan. This would be an amendment to the sub-area plan. Right now, we're talking about that Area 3, which was called Town Center. And the property owners here are looking at this triangular piece of property. I wonder if this will, can you cursor? It will. This area here, currently residential, and they would like to add an additional residential site, which would be inconsistent with the town center designation. So the proposal is to change it to reflect what's next door there, the large lot teal color. Here's the parcel map that shows the parcels being affected. The Helveys own the two properties to the left, a little tiny square, which was a telephone exchange site, and then another property owner to the right. Both of these are zoned residential, so therefore they're essentially inconsistent with the comp plan. The sub-area plan is written, and we've suggested that we change both of the plan to recognize both of them as residential in the sub-area plan. That would provide us with a map that looked like this. So it would provide the teal color for the large lot area south of the town center, which is compatible with the lands to the east and to the south. And I can zoom in on that one a little bit. So again, these are the parcels that are being considered tonight. The staff believe this is appropriate. The plan has been in effect for 15 years, and the town center has had very little development in terms of non-residential activity on it. There's adequate land left in the town center designation for such things to take place, and this would make the zoning on these sites consistent with the comp plan by making the change to the comp plan. The Helvies are here tonight to answer any questions as well, and I can answer any questions you might have about this request.
Well, everything north of 70 is Adams County, correct?
No, this is in Byers, so all of Byers is in Arapahoe County, all the way up to the top of the map.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we will then, does the developer wish to make some comments?
My name's Ken Helving. Really appreciate you guys being here, and there's some wonderful people over here from Arapahoe County. I don't have bad things about them, but well, I got some jewels. So, in 2005, my wife and I purchased this piece of land that was roughly 4 acres, and on this thing there were 2 homes, 2 small homes, and when we bought the property, it was bad. I mean, it was one of the houses you couldn't even see. It was dead trees and et cetera. And at the time, it was the zoning on it was R2, residential 2, and right in the middle, I think he brought that up. Right in the middle of it, there was a 1/4 acre that had previously been owned by the telephone company, and it was zoned agricultural. Just didn't make sense. And as of today, it's still that way. What we wanted to do is get this rezoned into R1, where the 2 houses are, plus part of the land, the pasture out there. So now it would be a conforming zoning, because before it was non-conforming that we had on there. And so we went to work on it for the last 10 years. We added like 50 trees on the property, growing good, and cleaned it up so the whole property and the 2 houses right now look very, very nice. But we're getting to the point where, especially at our age, that we want it separated off so we can now sell it. And with the zoning on right now, we can't sell it. And there's no mortgage company that would put out a loan on anybody buying that because of the 2 houses on a non-conforming zoning on that. So what we're trying to do, we'll get them separated out. And so the biggest reason we really started on this is April of last year. I ended up rushed to the hospital, and I was within just a few hours of not waking up the next morning. And right there I started thinking, then if something like this does happen, then how would my wife even be able to sell this? Or if both of us were to disappear, our kids couldn't do anything about it. So we're trying to get it into the place now where it would be logical and no problems at all to sell each one or both houses without any problems. Anyhow, that is basically all I wanted to address to you folks, and to see if we could get this. We've done a lot of work on it. We started this whole thing when it was like January or February of this year, so to getting everything done out there. And we've already had it surveyed, and so we're just asking you folks to see our part of what we really need to go on this, especially with my health. I want something that we could get rid of without a problem. So anyhow, that should do it right there. Just a quick in what we want to do. So anyhow, thank you very much.
Are there any questions, Mr. Helvey?
Yeah, where does the lots lay it at?
I can go.
Roughly. And is this an equal split?
Maybe this would be better if I show you that. Or can you do it?
We'll see if I can back it up.
Okay.
If it's R1, don't they have to each be roughly an acre?
What's that? Oh.
The zoning you mentioned, you wanted to achieve was R1 zoning
Right.
to get through this
Yeah.
process. So they each have to be, I think that's 40,000 square feet.
This right here is the acreage island right there. This little quarter acre right here, that's the one I was talking about with the pump and
Utility.
And so it's and it's down tiny square right there is actually shown as agricultural. That makes sense. And so anyhow, that's it right there. One of the houses right here and one right here, and then this is about roughly 1.8 acres actually that would be made that way.
You're intending to keep the two houses that are there? You've fixed them up? Are people living in them now?
Yeah, I'm living in them.
You're living in
I'm
them.
living in one of them. On the other one, other house, I rented it out. That she knew what we were trying to do here, and you know, she couldn't afford to buy the house, so she moved out. And right now, it's vacant. I went through and put all new floors and painted it and blah, blah, so it's right now it's in just a beautiful shape. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hovey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will open the public hearing. Do you have other comments?
Clarify a little bit. We have kind of a two-step process here where we need to get the sub-area plan amended before that they could go ahead with the rezoning on the property. So there's first the step to make it residential in the comp plan, and then they'll be back before you in a little while with the rezoning to get it to match up with the houses.
And I noticed that no nearby homeowner had any comments.
None.
None.
And I handed out to you tonight, we had a couple of comments from the East Arapahoe County Advisory Planning Commission folks. One of them was concerned about any additional houses, and if the Helveys at this point are planning on just having the two houses, that would not be an issue. I guess I should also note in your packet there's a letter from Tri-County Health concerned about the septic systems, and the Helveys are actively working with Tri-County and with the contractor to get the septic systems up to snuff, and those all should be in place before the rezoning takes place.
What is on the piece of land immediately to the north?
I think it's farmland, isn't it?
What's that?
North of Alameda?
Yeah, north, yeah, that's all farmland up there. Some part of the tree farm. By the way, what he was just saying about the septic, they've totally replaced the septic system.
Excuse me, sir, could you come up to the microphone? Just so we can make sure we get that on.
But talking about the septic system on that second house, it was bad. So we actually did away with it. Got to Tri-County, everything was done, inspected, and good to go on that. So.
And immediately east of your piece of property, what is that triangle?
This piece here?
No, the white.
It's also large lot residential, agricultural.
Yeah.
But it already has a house on it?
There's no house on it. On this one. On this one right here you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah, there's no development and there's no house on it.
There is a house?
This piece right here, there is a house on it.
Two houses.
Part of the house and a modular home.
Okay. Okay.
Just to clarify, what is the acreage of each of the lots?
The Helvey property, including that little piece that was priorly
Own company.
would be 3.8 acres.
Okay.
And then the property further to the east is 14.3 acres. And they're not proposing to make any changes to that property. They're happy with the way it's zoned. We'll just be making the plan consistent with the zoning.
Thank you.
I guess we will, unless there are any immediate questions, open the public hearing for the Healthy Sub-Area Plan Amendment, if anybody wishes to come forward. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back for further questions or consideration by the Planning Commission.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Woolman is making a motion.
In the case of LR 19-002, Healthy Subdivision Comprehensive Plan Amendment, the Planning Commission has read the proposed plan amendment and staff report and has considered additional information presented during the public hearing. We do find ourselves in agreement with staff findings 1 through 3 set forth in the staff report dated November 5th, 2019, and therefore approve the application. We approve the application with condition number 1.
Madam Chair, I'll second.
We have a second by Mrs. Latsis for the motion made by Mrs. Woolman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item number 3 for this evening is SDP 18-004, Strasburg Station Specific Development Plan. And for the county, Molly Orchard Larson.
We're going to pull up the presentation here, so get the applicant going.
Proximity.
Yes, on the desktop. Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Molly Orchard Larson, Senior Planner with the Public Works Department. The County Attorney has reviewed the notice and has determined that the applicant has met all the public notice requirements, thereby establishing jurisdiction. What's before you this evening is a special development plan that proposes a mix of residential and commercial retail and consists of 160 multifamily units, 64 age-restricted townhomes, and 25,000 square feet of commercial retail development. The 29-acre property is located approximately 1/2 mile west of the commercial center of the town of Strasburg at the southeast corner of East Colfax Avenue and North Piggott Road. The subject property is also located north and adjacent to the Union Pacific Railroad. Noise and vibration studies were conducted and were found to be within acceptable sound and vibration levels as per the HUD guidelines and the Federal Transit Administration. There was public comment received, and there's quite a few items discussed in the staff report. If you would like to go over any of them, I'm more than happy to go into more detail. But at this point, the applicant had addressed all the concerns. I did provide you with a handout of a detail that was on page 2 of the townhomes. The applicant has clarified a little bit better of what's going on with the townhomes and adjusted the rear setback from 0 to 10 and then fixed some of the text so it's more legible. On the second page, there's a proposal for an amendment to condition number 6. Under the PDP amendment, if you remember, the school district did ask, and it was a condition of approval, that the cash in lieu be based on the appraisal method. Since then, the applicant has met with the school district, and they have come up and worked out a number with both of them that feel satisfied with. The Parks District or the other facilities that would be considered under the cash in lieu did not ask for the appraisal method of calculation. So we made the number 6 more general. That would read, the amounts owed for cash in lieu will be established in accordance with the provisions of the Land Development Code at the time of the final plat. The applicant will be coming in with the final plat pretty soon, and at that time we'll look at more detail at the cash in lieu. Based on the findings in this staff report, staff is recommending conditions with approval. This concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them. The applicant is here tonight to provide you a presentation. Any questions?
Molly, the statement from a member of the East Arapahoe County Advisory Planning Committee, she said that the Strasburg sub-area plan was amended to allow for low density.
That's correct. It's low density.
Does it specify the density? Because she was saying this is not considered low density.
Actually, it was amended in 2016, and that amendment for the low intensity mixed use category allows light industrial, office, retail, mix of residential uses, or multifamily. They're proposing commercial retail and a mix of residential. So they do comply with that land use category.
Okay. That's low intensity, not low density.
Yes.
That was
Any other questions?
We may have some later, but thank you.
Okay. I'm available.
Hear from the applicant then.
All right.
Thank you, Molly. Not attached. Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, Todd Messenger, Fairfield and Woods PC, 1801 California Street, Suite 2600, Denver, on behalf of the applicant, Pauls Corp. With me tonight are Brad Pauls from Pauls Corp. And Eric Gunderson, the engineer on the project. So if you have any questions of ownership or of the engineering on this project, we're more than happy to answer those directly. With respect to the question about the comprehensive plan, the special area plan amendment, the category was previously low intensity mixed use. We did not actually amend the land use category for Strasburg Station. We only allowed that additional residential component back in, I believe it was 2016 when that plan amendment was made. So Strasburg Station had what was called at the time a preliminary development plan. Dates back some years now. And because I'm a former AICP planner, I wanted to just open with a little levity and navigate the acronyms here. I have found out, though, that I used to believe only transportation planners liked acronyms better than AICP planners. But as it turns out, teenagers. OMG, I said it. Okay, so Strasburg Station had a preliminary development plan, which is now called the General Development Plan, and that established the uses and the general standards. Recently, we were before this body to get that plan amended so that PDP, now GDP, how it stands in the county's code, to allow for a mix of both commercial and residential land uses, including apartments and age-restricted townhomes. So that framework in that GDP, PDP, however you want to call it, is what we're looking for consistency with this evening before this body. So the specific development plan that's before you tonight implements that PDP or GDP or whatever you want to call it by providing the additional details about how that development will lay out. So after tonight, we will seek an administrative site plan approval, which will provide all of the technical engineering detail. Now, probably you all already know this well because this process has been in place now, I think, about a year. But we just wanted to make sure because ours predates the new 2-step, 3-step process that the county recently adopted. So about this site, it's a half a mile west of the established commercial center in Strasburg. It's about 30 acres. It's at the southeast corner of Piggott and Colfax. It is zoned mixed use with an existing PDP, GDP approval, which we amended on July 23rd, 2018. And its future land use designation is low intensity mixed use in the Strasburg sub-area plan, and that it was amended back in 2016. So the physical context of the site, this is a recent aerial, although the recent aerial and the old aerial would look about the same in this particular region. It's situated between Colfax and the Union Pacific Railroad and I-70. West of the site is self-storage and vacant land. Both of those parcels are zoned for mixed use. East of the site is a vacant agricultural land, and north of the site is Adams County. So we're at the very north end of the county, and Colfax or Highway 36 in that location is the dividing line for the county. That is zone C5 in Adams County, and under the Strasburg sub-area plan, the land pretty much directly north is planned for a town center type of development at some point. The overview of the project, it's a horizontally mixed-use project. It provides housing variety and commercial opportunity that does not currently exist in Strasburg, including 160 multifamily units, 64 age-restricted townhomes, and about 25,000 square feet of retail and service uses. The commercial land inventory in Strasburg is currently fairly used up, I think, and there are no townhome units or multifamily units in that market. This does implement the county's comprehensive plan and the Strasburg sub-area plan. And it also implements the Strasburg Station PDP, which was approved by this commission about a year ago. This is the general site layout. That's a lot of technical engineering stuff on there, so we'll simplify it. The retail commercial is up in this corner, giving it some appropriate highway access at the intersection and supporting what may ultimately come up across the street. All the connections among all those buildings to that retail pad site are walkable. So folks that live inside this development should be able to access that retail without getting in their car. 64 age-restricted townhomes would go in the southwestern portion of the site. The eastern would be 160 multifamily units, and the far eastern would be open space used for stormwater detention purposes, so that the historic flows and the new flows would be the same. So we believe this project provides a number of community benefits. It will provide much needed housing options in Strasburg in the multifamily and age-restricted townhome formats. These help teachers, firefighters, healthcare workers, and others who want to serve this community find a place that they can live. They can try out small town life. If they like it, then they can move through the housing market in Strasburg. And people who want to age in place, who want the additional support of a block and leave kind of townhome project, they'll be able to find a unit in here as well, potentially opening up housing units for those who come through the apartments and are looking for sale housing at some point. The school district and the developer in this case have agreed to a cash in lieu payment of $163,686.82, which is approximately a little bit more than $100,000 more than the county code would require. So Paul's Corp has consistently been supportive of the Strasburg Schools District and intends to continue to be very supportive of that district. The traffic improvements are going to be made along the US 36 corridor and at some key intersections in town to make sure that traffic flows efficiently. There are a number of existing deficiencies in Strasburg that, through cooperation with CDOT, we think we ought to be able to help out. The Owners Association or management, in the case of the apartments, will provide mosquito control within the project, which would also be a benefit, obviously, to the entire community and nearby property owners, particularly in that area where the drainage is. Additional funding will also be provided at appropriate time for parks and other public lands under the county's cash in lieu requirements at final plat. So I'm about to run you through the boring stuff just because it's got to go on the record. These are all the standards. And before I get into all the standards and how the project complies with those standards, we would note that these are exactly the same standards that applied to the amendment to the general development plan that this body approved about a year ago. And so really what we're looking for, I think, is a legal matter tonight are, did we maintain that consistency? And then is this project consistent with what we got approved about a year ago? So with that in mind, if you go back over the record of that prior proceeding, you'll see a lot of redundancy here. Again, my apologies. We'll run through it quickly. The proposed development does implement the comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan actually changed, but with respect to that plan implementation, we're still there. We want to create incentives for development in designated growth areas. We want to allow urban development within designated growth areas only when all urban services and infrastructure can be provided. All of that is in place. I think that the key message here, the takeaway is, in the rural environment, we only want to be building products like this in growth areas. We are well within the Strasburg growth area. And in fact, within the Strasburg sub-area plan, the plan anticipates density and intensity to be on the 36 corridor. Want to direct growth to the rural town center planning areas. And there are numerous goals, policies, and strategies addressing the adequacy of services and infrastructure. And again, the developer is paying additional cash in lieu to the school district. Eastern Adams County Metropolitan District has the capacity to serve this project. and we're making improvements to the roadways to satisfy CDOT. All of the other utilities are available to serve this site. The site's within the boundaries of the Strasburg Subarea Plan. It's consistent with the low-intensity mixed-use designation under the Strasburg Subarea Plan, allowing retail, office, residential, and industrial. The vision to provide jobs, shopping, healthcare, and other services necessary so people don't have to commute to the metro area. We're providing 25,000 square feet of retail commercial opportunity in this location to deliver whatever the market may want in that space. Concentrating higher density housing, shopping, community facilities, and active parks near the center of the community. This directly implements that policy. The SDP also recognizes the limitations of existing and planned infrastructure. That's a quote from your plan, from your standards actually. And in doing so, the water and sewer service is there. We have the state engineer has approved that water supply and the aquifer analysis. So it's been double checked and verified. The stormwater detention on the eastern portion of the site will maintain historic flows and water quality and not impact downstream infrastructure. The anticipated traffic improvements will be at Piggott and Colfax with 3 new left turn lanes, widening of Colfax, and a 4-way stop at Wagner Street and Colfax, according to the traffic report. We had a great meeting with Adams County, Arapahoe County, CDOT, and Pauls Corp. To discuss not only the impacts of this project, but all of the policy development that's going on the other side of the county line. So all these improvements are in accord with serving not just this project, but all the projects that are coming online in the coming years. The SDP is compatible with adjacent land uses generally. It's principally, let me go back, if I can figure out how to go back. There we go. It's principally surrounded by vacant land and self-storage and a railroad corridor. So in terms of compatibility, I don't think that there are any direct compatibility issues. But in terms of the planned future uses, the age-restricted townhomes support the healthcare uses in Adams County. The northeast is a site that are already there. And then new small-scale retail and commercial space is needed. And again, that town center across the street having a critical mass of residential just south of that. I think ultimately when all that builds out, if it builds out according to plan, this will definitely be supporting that vision in the future. Excuse me. The requirement is to have efficient and adequate provision of public services. There are no concerns from referral agencies. And again, we've more than doubled our cash in lieu to the school district to make sure that they're able to offset that impact. We want to ensure convenience by locating employment, housing, leisure, and retail in close proximity. We see some running themes in the comprehensive plan. The proposed development will have a compact form. It's located near existing development, and it provides a mix of uses and housing types that are not currently present in that market. Protecting against public safety hazards. This is a flat, formerly agricultural field. There's no safety hazards happening at this site at all. There is a railroad to the south that has been the subject of extensive discussions with staff and with this body. We've run noise studies on it. We're on the site well within all the HUD guidelines for noise. And so there's some conditions with respect to noise. We'll make sure that our residents are happy with their homes. The central AC, I think, is a key to that. The double pane windows and building to the energy code should be sufficient to deal with all of the noise impacts that may come from rail. Also, the UPRR requested that we provide security along the southern boundary to prevent trespassing. I think that's going to take the form of an 8-foot fence with posted with no trespassing signs. The site is served by 2 access points on Piggott Road. Excuse me, change of seasons here. And 1 on Colfax. There is internal vehicular circulation that's interconnected, so entry into any one of those points would allow exit from any of the others. So good in terms of emergency services or whatever might ultimately be needed for residents. And then the internal pedestrian systems are also interconnected. So if a coffee shop or something like that were to locate, people would just be able to go there without having to drive and park. We want to minimize disruption to existing physiographic features. There are no notable physiographic features on this site. It's essentially flat. The natural drainage ways are preserved in the plan. Ensuring quality of life by creating comfortable and aesthetically pleasing environment. The SDP sets out the minimum open space by the land use. Track day will remain open for stormwater detention quality. The SDP also provides more open space than is required under the preliminary development plan, general development plan. The arrangement of the buildings provides visual and functional accessibility to outdoor areas, and we use the, for lack of a better word, a small town vernacular for the building architecture. Usable space should be enhanced and recreational opportunities provided. The PDP sets out these minimum open spaces by land use, and we have exceeded those in the final plan. The pedestrian facilities will be provided along Colfax, connecting retail commercial to the broader community. And connectivity, pedestrian circulation, bicycle circulation are key aspects of the overall site design. In terms of compliance with the land development code standards and the comprehensive plan, it complies with all applicable standards, and we respectfully submit that it implements the comprehensive plan. It's an improvement in quality over the strict applications of otherwise applicable zoning district standards. The applicable zoning district is mixed use, which must be implemented through a PDP process, when we started this process. So given that as the governing document, we actually exceeded the standards that we set out for ourselves during this process by providing more open space and a better design as this iterated through the process. In this type of, in this location, this type of development required this type of zoning, and this provides a horizontally mixed-use development that implements county plans. It provides much-needed housing types and commercial land inventory in Strasburg. So we think overall we've created a quality development here that your general zoning standards would not have allowed without a ton of complexity. The SDP is consistent with the PUD purposes, which are high-quality horizontally mixed-use development, preventing monotony by introducing new housing types to the community, creating a project that's not achievable by straight zoning in this location, and implementing an approved GDP, SDP. Excuse me, hold on. This is a very sensitive keyboard. It meets all the applicable requirements, and it conforms very closely to the PDP that was approved last year. So in summary, we meet all the appropriate standards, implement the plans, and we respectfully request the Planning Commission to approve this SDP. If you have any questions, of course, we're here to answer them, and we have ownership and engineering represented. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yes, I have some.
Yes, Mr. Ackerman.
First one, when was the last meeting with the school district?
Mr. Paul?
I met with the school's attorney by phone probably 6 months ago.
Okay. So my concern there is because on July 29th, a letter from the Strasburg School District said it was okay. On March 15th, from Kimley Horn from the school district, it says that there was a significant impact. Okay? So now I'm trying to figure out, because if that was 6 months ago, if the school district was basing their answer upon the ballot measure 5A passing, which was a $25 million bond to expand that school. It did not pass. Now, has those views changed from the school district?
So I think I can answer that. I'm in regular contact with Dick Bum from the school district because Pauls has a number of obligations in Adams County as well. We have not received any word from the school district that things have changed with respect to that payment. Moreover, with respect to that payment, it's more than double what the county code requires. And it's far and away, bond or not, in terms of a per student expenditure, Pauls has really stepped up in terms of helping the school district in this regard. In Adams County, Pauls is dedicating about 17 acres out of a project called Wolf Creek Run for a school site that they're going to provide services to as well. And they have a number of other housing developments that are paying full freight in Adams County towards the school district. So before these projects came in, actually school district enrollment was flat or declining. And Pauls has actually helped them not only with its own funding from these projects, but with state allocations that are on a per pupil basis. So the nice thing about Strasburg for families is it's a great place to raise your kids in a small town. A lot of those families come in and move into products that are produced by Pauls.
We've been in partnership with the school district out there for a long time, since we started building houses out there, my brother and I. Recently, we've agreed to build a $300,000 roadway that's going to allow a new school to open up in Strasburg that's going to be associated with the local community church. When they open up that school in the next fall, it's going to accommodate the first 60 children. They have funding to build a K through 12. So there's expansion for a brand new school in Strasburg.
when I contacted Dick Monk for this project, we calculated the fee in lieu, and I said, Dick, I'm happy to double that fee, offset any additional impacts with the school. And that's the reason why that's the reason why we use the appraisal method to reach the higher impact fee. I felt like the impact fee that we calculated, Dick and I, was not, I didn't feel like it was good enough. So we more than doubled it. The only way we could back into that amount was by using the appraisal method. So that's why that was used.
You kind of made up that appraisal too, is that right?
We absolutely made up that.
Because the land out there isn't worth that much.
Nobody's paid that much money for land out there. But we've been in partnership with the school and worked very close with the school district for many, many years, 20 plus. So just because I had a conversation with Dick 6 months ago doesn't mean that we haven't had ongoing conversations back and forth between the two of us.
Okay, I do have another one here. So I live out there. So I know exactly where this is and what's going on, etc. The other thing, my concern there is right where that's at is we have traffic that goes up and down in speed right in that area with it. And I know heading westbound, as soon as you hit Piggott Road, people punch it and go. Okay? When they come in, they're not slowing down to the 45 and then to the 35. Some do, but realistically, they don't. So I guess my question just is there deacceleration and acceleration lanes planned for that? Because that's a pretty good traffic pattern there that you're introducing.
Yes. Before Eric speaks, we spoke because we're building homes in Adams and Arapahoe counties. The intersection at Wagner Street is being affected by growth. It was over capacity before we even built the very first house. We met with Colorado Department of Transportation to talk about all of our developments and how they affect all of these intersections. And Kimley and Horn, Eric Gunderson, developed a traffic control plan that he's going to talk about some more that addresses all those issues.
Okay.
So the improvements that CDOT is requiring.
Please just tell us your name and address.
Eric Gunderson, Kimley Horn and Associates, 4582 South Ulster Street, Denver, Colorado. So the improvements that are triggered by the traffic study are not necessarily deceleration lanes at the Piggott Road and Highway 36 intersection. So what we are adding is a center turn lane along the entire project frontage from Piggott Road east along the project frontage, and then widening the roadway, and then the access onto Highway 36 from the north side of the project. So that will have acceleration lanes for people getting on to Colfax. But there will be, and then so west of Piggott, there will be a center left turn lane for people to go north on Piggott as well, and then we'll be widening basically to kind of mirror the condition that's along Highway 36. So not necessarily decel lanes, as they're not warranted based on the proposed traffic volumes, but XL lanes coming on to Highway 36.
Would you say that change in configuration of the road provides a second structure? It seems to me that what you need is a psychological cue that you've arrived as a driver, right? So when the road widens after Piggott to a double left-hand turn lane, then you've changed configuration, you've arrived somewhere, and it's time to slow down. And hopefully CDOT will post, hey, you're coming into town kind of signs or whatever as well. But I think that's going to help. And it might be the cue that you're leaving too. So, in terms of people punching in, I don't know if there's anything you can do about that on rural roads.
No, but you're introducing quite a bit of traffic.
I think what we've done with the double left-hand turn lane will help in terms of looking at that road and seeing how it changes. And you're going to have to swerve a little bit to make it into that lane as you change the configuration. So I think people will understand that they're coming into a place that's different from where they were.
Okay.
CDOT references in their comments their future vision for 36 and was concerned about the right-of-way. Do you have enough right-of-way? I mean, are they going to widen 36? Are you prepared to accommodate that?
Yeah, it's part of the plan.
Yes, so there is additional right-of-way that is being dedicated along the north side, along Adams County, to facilitate that widening. So yes, with this project, there'd be the right-of-way there for the additional lanes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Mr. Brockman, you have.
I only have one more question, believe it or not, but I do have one more. So, in your sound attenuation study, okay, the one thing that you mentioned is AC to offset some of that.
Yeah.
Well, the AC only runs about 5 months out of the year out there.
Sure.
What about the other 7 months?
So again, the noise studies, noise was a big concern for Julio when he was still here. Say again? Oh, yeah. So go ahead.
The reason why AC is used as a noise mitigating measure is so during the summer, if you don't have AC, you need to open up your windows. In this case, you have AC, so you don't have to open up your windows, therefore offsetting the noise from the railroad tracks. So in the wintertime, when it's cold, you don't necessarily want to open up your windows.
And the energy efficiency codes also, the buildings are a lot tighter than they used to be, so they flight sound better than they used to. The newer homes are more soundproof.
And then the 8-foot fence that's proposed on the south side, is that just a wooden fence, or is that a block fence? Is that a chain link? Is there some attenuation there from the railroad track?
I don't believe that's been defined, but the picture that I had in my mind was a wooden slat fence.
Okay.
Typically what you see in a backyard or a park or whatever.
Okay.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
So, so you've got approvals as far as water is concerned, but, water's pretty precious out in this part of the county, well, everywhere. But do you have any plans in your implementation for water conservation?
We're implementing water conservation right now. East Adams Metropolitan District imposes water restrictions every summer to prevent overwatering of yards, prevent water from running down the gutter, from people leaving their sprinkler systems on too long. Our SBR plant, which is the wastewater plant, is state-of-the-art and provides very, very clean, energy-efficient wastewater treatment. We're using alluvial wells for irrigation in the summertime and deep water wells for potable water. Well, it's all potable, but we are implementing alluvial wells for irrigation in the summer, and that is renewable water.
How about in terms of your landscaping plans for the common areas? Are you looking at drought-tolerant plantings?
We will implement as much xeriscaping as we can. We don't want to see this entire 30 acres or developable acres as I believe it's 22. We don't want to see the entire 22 acres with sod. We'll implement xeriscaping as much as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you address how usable the detention pond area will be for your open space? I mean, is it going to be literally a pond? Or is it the area around it? that you could walk on?
It's only going to see water in an extreme event, and it's just to the south of the railroad tracks and the interstate. So most of the water that drains from the north of I-70 is stopped by I-70. So the drainage, it is sized to accommodate flows from the north, but it's mostly sized to accommodate runoff on this site, and it'll see standing water in a large rain event, but for the most part, it's going to be just open space.
Okay. Because you did. People have commented that, I guess they feel the rural character of Strasburg will change because of this development. How would you answer their concerns?
I can test those concerns. In regards to the apartments are going to allow for a new housing alternative, maybe for young teachers or firefighters or kids that live in town that don't want to leave and their folks live there and they grew up there. Also, the apartments are going to, the original idea that I had when we were planning this out was with the age-restricted townhomes. Folks that live in that area that don't want to move away, want to stay, but still don't want to be on the farm, can stay. Maybe they have a son or daughter that's a single parent, can live in the apartments, and the family can be close by together without having to share underneath the same roof. The other ideas that I had was satisfying the need for housing for teachers, like I said before, firefighters, basic service folks. That housing alternative does not exist in Strasburg right now. There are plenty of rentals. There are a lot of rental homes in Strasburg, but they rent for $1,800 to $2,500 a month. And these apartments are going to be a terrific alternative to that.
Less expensive.
Less expensive, new, nice, well-maintained. Our company builds apartment communities nationwide. We have a lot of experience building and maintaining apartment communities. One area is Gateway Park, which is an area that our family has developed for the last almost 30 years. And we've built thousands of apartments over there. And townhomes.
I think we can add also, if I might, the Strasburg subarea plan anticipates a build-out population around 20,000. There's about 2,200 in Strasburg right now. So in terms of small town, 20,000 is a small town. And if you have 20,000 people, it's very helpful to have a variety of housing products for people to live in of all different circumstances, I think, as Mr. Paul so pointedly addressed.
Yeah, there's a large need for more retail space in Strasburg right now as we speak. The retail space that's been built, which is very nice, has been full since it was constructed. And I think there's a lot of growth potential for more retail services in Strasburg, and folks that live there really enjoy that.
Mrs. Woolman?
The age restriction, is it 50 and up or 55 and up?
It's 55 and over.
Okay. And are we talking single-level townhomes or 2 stories?
No, they're all single level.
Okay.
2 bedroom, 2 bath with 2-car garage.
And I noticed, correct me if I'm looking at this incorrectly, but it looks like the front, I'm looking at the front setback, which was increased, I think. It faces the railroad tracks. Am I looking at that incorrectly?
Rear yards do.
Okay, good. Thank you. Because I was like, when I looked at this and I saw a front setback and I'm looking at it and it's looking at the railroad tracks, I was concerned about that on this. So thank you for clarifying that, because nobody wants to look at a fence that's protecting access onto Union Pacific's railroad tracks. So, thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Thank you very much, Mr. Paul.
Thank you.
I guess at this point we will open the public hearing. We have 3 people sign in and 3 who have spoken. Mr. Gunderson, Mr. Pauls, and Todd Messenger. Is there anyone else that would like to make comments regarding this proposal? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission. Further questions? Mr. Brockman, did you get everything answered that you wanted to, or anything else you would like us to know?
The only thing, and I think this is a little bit of a concern too, but I think it's been adequately vetted out, is because it is a volunteer fire department, volunteer ambulance out there. We're introducing some, age restricted, not that anything doesn't happen, but you're also increasing the population in that area with it. So has the Strasburg Fire Department made any concerns? And I know that there's agreement with all of them out there, but is there any real concerns from them, Mr. Paul?
I've not heard. Are you on the fire board?
I am not.
I have not heard any concerns from the fire board at all. I know a couple of the members, and nobody's expressed any concerns to me. As opposed to the increase in, I wouldn't consider 55 to be elderly.
No. But well, I know, because I'm past that too, so I guess I'm elderly. I can move in.
But I think the demographic for this housing product is more of a current resident than it is somebody searching for a 55 and over community coming from the metro area.
And the only other one would be, because that is served by Arapahoe County Sheriff, which is housed in Byers. Is there any concerns from them because again, you're putting a pretty good concentration of people there of responding to anything there, because they're, 10 minutes away.
I've not heard any concerns from either sides of the Arapahoe, Adams, Sheriff's Departments. Okay. Strasburg has been very, very, as you know, a very safe community to live in. And as the town has been growing, there's not been any exponential growth in crime
And that's true, but as it grows, then you know as well as I do what the concerns are in the town of Bennett. And Bennett has its issues with what's going on, with the kids and things. And I guess I look at it, is this now going to start creating those issues within Strasburg as what Bennett has?
I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
How long have you been in the area?
I've been out there for 20 years.
I've been out there since '89.
Yeah. So, we've both seen a lot of changes in things.
Bennett has had a continual issue in that regard for 30 years. And not a lot's changed. Strasburg has grown triple in the last 23 years without the same effects.
And I hope it stays that way.
I do too.
Because living there, a little bit protective of the environment. And
I agree.
Putting this in, and when I heard that, it's projected to be 20,000 people, it's like, wow. I don't.
Well, yeah, that wasn't written by me or.
No, I know that.
It was written. When they came up with the comprehensive plan, Julio was there. He says, well, the way things are growing now, the professional study says this is what we foresee this area being as far as a population. And it didn't even come to a tenth of that.
Right. So, okay. Thank you, Mr. Wong.
Yep.
Mrs. Orchid-Larsen?
Yes, I was going to follow up on your question about emergency, the fire district. I did call the fire chief and asked them specifically about, ambulance service and emergency response. And there is an agreement, as you're aware of, up and down the corridor of those fire districts to, if one is out on a call, that the others would cover. And he didn't seem to have a problem. So. And then on the sheriffs, Glenn Thompson responds and Scott Sickenfoos, and I got no comments from them at all. So there wasn't any concern on their part on this. So, all right.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the Planning Commission or anybody?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Mrs. Latson would like to make a motion.
In the case of SDP 18-004 Strasburg Station Specific Development Plan, the Planning Commissioners have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the public hearing. I hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to conditions 1 through 6.
Do we have a second for the motion made by Mrs. Latson?
Can I just add a clarification?
Yeah,
There
I
was
was just going to
about the condition of
Yeah.
approval amendment.
So I amend my motion to clarify, was it number 6?
Yeah. Yes.
For the submitted language received by the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I would modify that motion to just note that condition number 6 has been amended so that the motion includes the condition 6 as amended.
Okay, the motion has been amended. Do we have a second for the motion as amended?
So moved.
Mr. Brockerman has seconded the motion as amended, which was originally made by Mrs. Latson. Any other comments? We will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you
all for coming.
Declare the meeting adjourned. Yeah.